And we
That's a
are
good idea.
live. We are live. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening. Me, Adelia Aborshade, also known as Picky Girl, travels the world, and my guest, AZ. You're kind of like, I almost say low key famous because I got several comments today like, oh, yeah, I see her in Stephanie's lives. So people
Aw.
know who you are.
Being out
People
here trying to
know
be
who you are.
social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tonight, y'all, we are talking about choosing full-time travel. AZ decided not to go the typical expat route and relocate to a single country, but instead to travel full-time. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. As always, if you've got questions, please drop them in the comments. Hey, Stephanie. Hey, Angela. Um, Now, I am curious. I'm curious as to like how you ended up on this path. Like, why did you even start traveling to begin with?
So I'm a military child. So naturally, like traveling has always been kind of like a normal thing in my family because my mother was U.S. military. My father was in the Royal Air Force. That's kind of how they met and blah, blah, blah. I fell in love. But like, so traveling's been like normalized to me. But during the pandemic, things just started to get to me and things that I thought made sense stopped making sense. And things that I thought were gonna be forever started to look very short term. And I just started to come to a place in my life where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, is this what I want to be doing? Because I stagnated. I started to kind of fall into the normal life of normal routine and doing all that rigmarole and I thought that's what I wanted. But like during the pandemic, you have time to really think. I was like, I don't want this. I want something more. And then initially it was like, I want to live somewhere else. That was my initial plan. Like, I just want to live somewhere else. I want to be somewhere else. I'm tired of like the culture. I'm tired of like my experiences haven't been what I thought they would be. I want something different. And so I just started to explore online and started to find people who were like-minded, people who I felt like I could mold myself after. And I just was like, you know what? It's time to just go. No more excuses. And it was more or less like I was just fed up with the normal, because I've never been normal, but I fell into that route, and I'm like, I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable. Get me out of here. And that's kind of what like led to me finding the resources I needed to, and moving forward back in like November of last year. Yeah.
Do you think you would have come to that conclusion had it not been for the pandemic?
You know, the scary thing is I don't think I would have, or at least it would have been like years later where I would have been feeling more and more like I would have regretted it. I really think the pandemic was like that catalyst that I needed to kind of push me forward. Because I don't think I really observed my life and thought that I felt like I was missing anything. But until I had that time where I was like, yo, I'm not happy with this. I'm only kind of happy with that. This is only kind of satisfying me. And I'm like, I didn't have that perspective until I had a chance to sit down and like be with my thoughts. But so I don't, you know what, girl? I guess the pandemic was necessary in a way, for me at
Well,
least.
I mean, you're not alone in that. I think a lot of us, because we had so much downtime and you were forced to live, to like be in your life. A lot of the distractions we have out in the outside world, we did not have. I think this is one of the reasons why there were so many folks who ended up getting divorced during the
Hmm.
pandemic because you had to like you whatever your life choices had been up until that point, then you had to sit with them and you had nothing to distract you from them. So I totally get that. Um, so you were like, I want to be somewhere else. What I'm doing is not working. It's not giving what it's supposed to have gave. And how did you proceed from there? So you went online, you got community. That's one of the things that we always talk about. Stephanie talks
Absolutely.
about, Rashida talks about, I talk about is that, find other people who want to do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah. And it was it for me because I am like I have certain levels of anxiety, right? So I had to get over the anxiety of doing this on my own. I had a hard time I was wrestling with the idea. And the first trip I took in this, what's led to me kind of starting traveling, I took with my sister. It was kind of like a test run where we went to Mexico and we went to Mexico City and we did all these different things. And I was like, can I do this by myself and stuff like that? And then my sister started getting on my nerves. I'm like, yeah, I can because she gets on my nerves. So therefore, like, therefore, if she's not there, that whole little part of like me being getting on my nerves is gone. But like it was more or less like seeing all these women and women who look like me or look like my mother or look like my family and seeing them doing it and doing it by themselves and like being comfortable because I feel like after a while, like I lived in England and America, 12 years in England and then the rest of my time was in the States. And like almost American culture tends to try to scare you on certain countries. I feel like they have a lot of fear mongering about it, and they got to me. It was, and I was in the military too, so I was one of these gung ho women who was like, "Yeah, I believe everything that America says," and then you start questioning things. You're like, "No," and it's just more or less like I started questioning, and women started providing information. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this by myself. I just have to take that first step, which was Mexico, and then after that, it was like that was cool, that was fun, that was amazing. But like, what can I do by myself? Because honestly, people cannot move and do the things that I can do. They don't have the schedule or the availability or the freedom. And I'm like, I can wait, or I can just go on about my way and figure it out as I go. And I've learned so much from just doing it that way, putting myself in uncomfortable situations. And like, it's been hard, but it's been extremely satisfying.
I think you've made several references to doing it alone, and as many of you know, I'm sure y'all can hear Mia walking around. Y'all can hear that little click clack. I guess she just decided she's ready to go somewhere. Dude, go sit down. Go sit down. All day she sits down and does nothing. But the minute I start recording, that's when she's got to walk around the
It's
house.
time. Hmm.
But I have a Facebook group for Black women who want to solo travel, that do solo travel, because, like you said, you could wait on other people, but your schedule was such that, you had a lot of flexibility and you could go. So I definitely understand that. I think I'm to the point now that solo travel is probably my preferred method. There's like less than 5 people, less than a handful of people that I will willingly travel with. So I definitely understand that. Um, I saw twin mommy Janice's comment because I think this speaks to what you said earlier. My dad suddenly died suddenly, and then 2 months later, the pandemic, I was examining my life under a microscope and concluded I hated it here.
Hmm.
I think and this is one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you, is because, like you said, you believed all of the propaganda, all of the stuff that we're told as Americans, and that will have you, when you start to feel that discomfort and that unhappiness, it'll have you questioning that, because you're like, this is America. This is supposed to be the greatest country in the world. I should love it here, but yet you didn't.
Yeah, it was like a harsh reality because I was lucky enough that I have gone other places, so I was able to have some kind of idea that the world was bigger and broader than just America. But like from being in the military and just kind of being in a military family, they kind of like it's almost indoctrination in a way
Oh,
that you have
yeah.
this sense like this way of like this is the best. Why would you want anything else? What else would they have to offer you? What else can you get gather from them? And it's like once I kind of got over that, it was more or less like time to go. And like for me, some similar to her, but mine was 3 years ago. My father passed away. And like when that happened, that kind of made me want to stay in America more. I was like, I don't want to go back to England. I don't want to go anywhere. Like these things, these memories I had are associated with him. So it's more or less like I just need to live my life here and just be happy with things. And like I knew that was never who I was, but like I wanted to believe it so much. I really wanted to believe it, but at the end of the day, it became really, really clear that like this was not where I was supposed. America's not where I'm supposed to be. The life that I had here is not what I was supposed to live, and the experience I had here, they're great, absolutely. I'm so thankful for them, but like I know that there's so much more for me, and I've been experiencing that, and like it's I don't know, it's been like life changing to be honest
Well,
with
that's what I
you.
was going to say. You wanted more.
Yeah.
And I think particularly as women, we're not encouraged to pursue more. um, I am curious, how did you make the decision? Like you, because you are currently living a full-time travel lifestyle. How and why did you make that choice as opposed to, I want to move to X country?
So I think I started to spoil myself a little bit. Like I was telling myself, I just want to travel, and then I see what place resonates with me, and then that is where I'm going to hopefully settle at in the near future. But the more and more I travel, the more and more I discover like each of these countries had these amazing experiences and amazing culture and amazing food. Girl, I love to eat. So it became more or less like, why should I stagnate myself and tell myself this is it for me? When I can go to these different places and have all these different experiences and learn all these different things and try to teach myself a bit of the language each time I go back, and I can try to like, build these relationships and get to know people. But it's like, okay, this is my home. I just felt like for me, I learned through the last year. I've always been this way, but this last year I'm like, I am obsessed with different cultures. I'm obsessed with different people. I'm obsessed with their stories. And like I'm like, if I'm in one place, those stories will start to get old as well. And I'm at a place right now where I'm like, I just want to keep hearing new stories, new culture, new experiences. I want to know what it's like for you when you wake up in the morning to where you go to sleep. I like all these nuances of different people, and like the more and more I was traveling, I was like, okay, this is amazing. But while I was in France, I met this guy who lives in Belgium. Now I'm curious about Belgium. And then when I was here, and it became more or less like I am just extremely curious about all these different people, all these different like their lifestyles, and I want to be able to experience. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go to every place. Well, I
Hey, but
could,
ain't nothing
but
wrong with that. If you
you're
want to go,
right.
go for it, girl.
You're right, you're right, you're right. Let me hear I am talking myself out of it. There we go again.
Yeah.
Letting myself know, talking myself down. You're right. But like if that's what I want, that's what I want. And for right now, that seems to be like I'm the most drawn to that type of experience in my life. I want to know it all, see it all, and experience it all.
Did did your people, be they family, be they friends, did they feel some kind of way about this choice or this decision?
So I'm happy that you kind of brought that up because um like today I had a bit of a conversation and I had released a video about the idea of like this the strong black woman narrative, right? About having to be selfless, and to have to be super giving
Girl,
because
don't
my
get me started
family,
on that.
you know
Don't
how
get
it
me
is.
started on that.
Girl, I had a vent in that video. It was like I was mad. It was more or less like because I've been hearing it since I've been gone. It's like, well, what about this person? What about your nieces and nephews? And what about this thing that you need to take care of? And what about that? And how can you do this? It seems very selfish and irresponsible. And like, what if something happens to you? And I'm like, what if? Like, I can't decide my life based upon what ifs. I've decided my life on what ifs my entire life. Like I've put I've stopped so many things. I've said no to so many opportunities because I'm like, well, if I do this, then I'm gonna be away from my family and therefore, blah blah blah. If I do this, then my friends won't be able to see me if they want to. And then it's more or less like, how long am I gonna make decisions based upon what this person wants while I'm sitting here miserable? Going back to school to get to study certain degrees for who? It wasn't for me. I didn't want that. I just wanted. I thought that was what the mirage was supposed to be. But like, I had it like I have, and I'm still going through this because like me and this traveling, y'all, you guys have seen the live is happening. This is still a relatively new concept. So my family is like they're kind of on board now, but I have a lot of naysayers. My friends are like whatever because my friend circle, the world that they live in a lot of a tribal based world too. So because a lot of them are performers and actors and blah 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 blah. So they're like, girl, live your best life. But it's more or less my family was like, but we need you. And I'm like, but do you really need me? And the thing that they've learned since I've been gone is like they became far more independent without me. I'm like, wow, I really like stifled you guys because I was always an excuse for you to get out of a situation. So they don't see they're starting to see it now, like, oh dang, now I know how to do my own taxes. Oh dang, now I know how to do this because you're forcing me to have to do it on my own. And I'm
Because
like,
that we need you was really about them and their stuff, not like our lives will fall apart without you. You are an integral piece. It is, we need you to perform these things in our life. And like you
Exactly.
said, by you being gone, that forced them to be more independent. You touched on something about this kind of lifestyle really being a fairly new one, which is why I was curious as to how, especially given the military background in your family, how they felt about it. Because you're a woman, you're
Yeah.
young,
Yeah.
and this is typically in American culture, this is that point in your life where you're supposed to be like setting the foundation and getting on the track. And here you just threw the track out the window and said, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. See it,
So go
and for
ahead.
me it was like I that's been the argument, my mother especially, she's like, but like, isn't this about time for you to be looking for a husband and buying property and thinking about giving me some a grandbaby, just one, because I don't need any more, because my brother gave her plenty. These are the things that I'm supposed to be thinking about, and I'm like, that's nice, but I don't think that's my story, and it's kind of hard for her to wrap her head around the fact that that may not be my story. She knows this. I've always been weird. I've always been eccentric. I've always been a little bit outside of normal kids and things of that nature. So it shouldn't surprise her, but still, it's just like, I really was hoping you would just get married and bring me a nice, son-in-law and do the low normal. I'm like, I still might find one. He might just be, foreign. I was like, you have a thing for foreign men. Like, why are you surprised? So it's more or less like, I'm like, it's like everyone's starting to come around to, but my mother's just like, she's been really like, and the thing about me being young and a girl, she's like, I'm not that worried about you, because I've done a lot of training, which I talked about too. Is like, I've done mixed martial arts training, I've done self-defense training. Obviously I had training associated with my time in the military. I'm not saying that nothing can happen, but like, she feels a little bit safer knowing that, like, okay, at least my daughter has some kind of foundation to protect herself if something does happen. But she still worries about it, especially with me if I go on dates or whatever. It's like sending me his social security number. What is the social security number named in that country? Whatever it's costing me that. I need his mother's information, his father's information. So there's still a lot of concern, but like, I'm very open with communicating with my family. So they feel a lot more secure in what I'm doing. But what can you do? It's like, it's either like, for them, I told, like, either you get on board or you jump off. I'm not in a place where I'm willing to be flexible with them.
And good for you. And that's why I wanted to make a point to ask this question, because it saddens me when I see women, give up the thing that may bring them happiness, the thing that they want to do, because of the expectations of other people or how other people need them in their lives. So yeah, good for you.
Yeah, it was hard. It was extremely hard because I've literally been, the backbone of my family. Whenever there was anything that they needed, I was the one to kind of fulfill that. That's why I have people say, why do you have so many skills? I'm like, well, because I needed to be this for my mother. I need to be this for my brother. I need to be this for my sister. My nieces and nephew needed me to be all of this. But like, it's been really hard to tell them no. It's an adjustment for me. But like, if anything else, traveling has given me a lot of confidence that I never knew that I could find. And I've stood up for myself, because I'm tough with like everybody else, but my family, I break, I fall apart. But this is the first time where they're like, okay, she's made a decision and she's sticking to it. And like, it's very empowering. I must say, it's been very empowering.
Well, I love to see it. I love to see it. Now, when you said it was like November of last year, so like November 2020 ish.
Hmm.
Um, after you made the decision that you were simply just going to travel and explore places and explore cultures, how did you prepare for that? Or did you prepare?
So I'm a very seat of the pants type of person. Like,
Okay.
I do not like to overthink, because if I overthink, I'll overthink my way out of it. I will just be like, da, 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 well, why am I even doing this? So I had to tell myself that, like, I have to start making these moves with as little thought as possible. Obviously, I did my research, like, through your YouTube and other YouTubes, as far as learning how to budget and finding like cost effectiveness and making sure that I'm within my budgeting range. And I did that like loosely. But for me, it
Okay.
was like, we just need to go. And if I don't freaking go, I'm gonna stay here. So I just need to freaking go. I need to stop making excuses because I'm a professional at talking myself out of things. I will find I'm like, well, well then why am I even doing it? Now I want to go home. So I was like, nah, you just have to get up and go. And like after I went to Mexico, and then I was like, I was telling my sister, I'm like, I'm gonna go here, and she's like, well, if you think that's the best, I'm like, and I start overthinking. I'm like, nope, no, I'm not listening to you. I'm not listening to you. I'm just gonna book my ticket. Boom. I'm not even gonna book a return flight. And when I come back, I come back. And that was kind of how it happened. I just was like, don't overthink, don't plan too much. And I'm not telling people don't do what I do. I'm just saying for my brain, this
But
was what was
no,
necessary for me.
that's an important thing to say, because there are people out there who they will research something to death because they feel like they have to plan out every part of it. They have to anticipate everything that can go wrong. And really, what that is what's the word I'm looking for? It's a way to delay things, to put it off, kind of a subconscious way of doing that. So if
Yeah.
you know that about yourself, like you knew you are good about talking yourself out of things, that you anticipated that by not giving yourself a chance to talk yourself out of making the move. So no, I think that's an important thing for anybody who might be watching this to hear, that, because it sounds like to me, you knew deep down, like, I need to do this, and you knew enough about yourself to anticipate and say, okay, these are the things I do to self-sabotage, let me not do that this time.
Professional self-sabotaging. I am like, I should win an award for it, like championship, because I told myself, because I like there's been other times where like this kind of came up and I kind of thought about it vaguely, and I just was able to kind of like push it away through things that I thought were so much more important and valuable in my life. But this was the first, this time I was like, yo, because like you said, I would over research. I would literally know. I would tell myself I don't need to go to a country unless I know at least this much of the language. Because otherwise, what am I doing
Girl,
going there? That's the type of person I was. I am telling you, that's how my
give
brain
me
works.
Google
Like,
Translate and I'm out. I will work it out, because that's one thing I have learned, is that you can tell a whole lot about through body language. I knew 3 words of Mandarin before I moved to China. I can now say I know 4. Okay, I picked up 1 word and I lived there a year and a half. However, there were times when we would be someplace and somebody would be saying something and I'd be like, oh, they don't want us here. They're telling us we have to move. I don't understand what she's saying, but I can read her body language. I can tell the way she's saying whatever she's saying in Mandarin. I can tell. So yeah, I've never let language stand in my way.
that's how easy I try to talk myself, because I'm like, well, I don't know Arabic, so why am I gonna go on over there? I can't communicate. I don't know how to hail a cab. But then it's just more or less like, what girl, what, like, what? I've always been that way though. Like I'd be like, I can't do this because I don't know how to do this and this. They're like, girl, none of us do. Why do you think you need to know
And
how to do it?
that's so the opposite of fly by the seat of your pants.
I had it, and for me, that's the thing about it. This has been like a whole different mindset switch for me, because I've always been very strategic. I've always been a planner, and I'm the type of person that if I don't think I have this ABC plan all in place, I'm not gonna do something. But then I had to tell myself, like, girl, this has been delaying. This is why you are still feeling the way you're feeling, because you demand too much of yourself. So I was like, well, what do I really need to know before I go there? I was like, well, pretty much, I just need to make sure I have some money, some clothes, so I can, not, change my clothes and have a place to live. Maybe when I first get there. But the thing about that's when it's been really challenging and fun, because I'm like, okay, I go there without much of a plan, and it's just like day by day, I'm creating one, I'm making one, I'm going by it, going and creating as I go, and it's been like, I never thought I even had those skills because I'm such a big time planner, but I'm like, I actually know how to make things happen with very limited resources. Who would have thought, until I had to put myself in a situation to be able to do it? So
And I think that's another important thing for people to hear, because in my solo travel group, I hear a lot of times like, I want to travel, but I'm afraid. And again, it's a lot of it is the fear of the unknown, and like how you're going to handle that. But what you said is very true. And what I always tell people is that, you know, think about your everyday life, and you don't know everything that's going to happen, but when shit pops up, you figure it out, you make it
Yeah.
work. The same is going to be true when you're in another country,
And I
you
think
know.
honestly, once you get through that first experience, like the rest of them are going to be so easy. Like I told my family, I'm like, look, I went to Turkey and struggled, so you guys don't have to. Like I know what to do, I know how to do it, I know how to navigate it. Like I struggled really bad, but like I started to make it come, the pieces started to fall together. Now when I go to a different place, I'm like, okay, I've been here, did this, just a different language. All right, let's figure it
Yep.
out. So
Yep.
it's been amazing to be able to develop those resources. I'm
Now,
still staggered by it.
so let's talk about that. So you went, when did you go to Mexico?
I went to Mexico in March. So
Of
in March is when I
2021.
yeah, March of 2021.
Okay. And kind of
Hmm.
from there, that was sort of the jump off point to this change in lifestyle for you. So um I actually have two questions. One, I want to talk about like where all you have been. And we're talking about like you didn't do all that much preparation for a very valid reason, for a very
Hmm.
valid reason. But like when you go to a country, do you have a plan as to even how long you're going to stay?
Okay. So as far as your first question, so far I have been to obviously Mexico, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, all over England. I've been to France, but I'm going back to France because it was very short term. Um, I feel like I've been to Croatia and I've been to no, that's it. That's it. Greece is where I'm going. I need
What's
to
the
go.
last
Oh,
place you said after Croatia?
oh shoot, girl, I don't have my memory is whack. Okay, wait, France, France, England, Spain, Portugal. Oh, now I didn't. Girl, oh, you made me forget. I should have wrote this down. Spain, Portugal, France, Turkey,
Turkey.
Croatia, all over England, which doesn't really count because that's like, I have citizenship there. Um, so I think
And
that's it.
then
I
you
may be
said
missing one.
something before you talked about Greece.
What did I say?
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It'll come back to me. I apologize. My brain is like bloop. It's just in and out. Yeah, you made me lose my train of thought. What was your second question again?
My second question was when you are traveling to a new country, are you
Okay.
thinking about like how long you intend to be there?
Yeah, so
Or,
I definitely have a loose idea. I try to keep a little bit of flexibility just in case something keeps me there longer. But typically with right now, I try to do no more than 4 weeks, so no more than about a month. Typically it's like I say 2 to 4 weeks. If something happens that I feels like I want to stay longer, I leave myself the flexibility to do so, but I don't try to spend too more than that. Especially right now with COVID, things are still kind of hazy a little bit. And so certain things may change in that country where I'm like, okay, let me leave because now this country has been put onto the red list or something like that. And therefore I need to
mhm.
leave because I won't be able to get back without a long quarantine if I'm going back to England or something like that. So it's loose based upon like what COVID may or may not cause and what I may or may not discover. But I don't want to stay in a country no more than I would say 6 weeks right now. Um, because there's just so many places to go and I'm just like I don't need that. I don't want to be hampered by that. But I do want to do more slow travel, especially once more Southeast Asia opens up. I want to do more slow and take my time and really take my time to go to Vietnam and Thailand and all that part of the world. But right now I'm like 4 to 6 weeks is the most I'm willing to do, and then I'm out.
Okay.
On to the next
Okay.
place.
Now, you mentioned that you have UK citizenship.
Hmm.
I was going to ask if that has been helpful with visas, but you've primarily been in Europe. And
Yeah.
since UK is not EU anymore, I'm imagining it's not that much. Is because do you have a US passport as well?
Yeah, I have both.
So is one proving to be more helpful than the other?
I mean, as far as the European countries goes, um, there to be honest with you, there hasn't been much of a like one day I'll pull out one day, next day I pull out the other. They're kind of interchangeable right now. I am definitely looking to a lot more curious once I start to go a little bit broader than that. I do think that in the end of the day, the UK passport will probably come in more handy, which I was a little surprised about. But I never really like looked into these things until recently, and I'm like, oh shoot, this gives you more conditions. So there are countries that are like, hey, look, you don't even need, a visa because of this citizenship. But if you use your U.S. citizenship, we need you to have this 3-month visa. So I was like, wow, wasn't aware of this. So there are definitely countries that are like, I'm noticing the UK passport makes it easier for me to go there without needing any type of visa. I can just go there as normal. But so I kind of got a little lucky with that. But I'm definitely interested in seeing more so once I get ready to apply for some of these visas for Southeast Asia, and seeing if I need it, if I don't need it, and how that's going to work. But I'm expecting the UK visas, or excuse me, UK passports to come more in handy for all of that.
Now, spending 4 to 6 weeks in the country, this I wanted to talk to you because this is not a subject I can talk about at all, because having to pack up and go somewhere new after a week is like my nightmare, despite the fact I booked a trip in January of 2020. I've mentioned this to y'all before. Because I was off for Chinese New Year. So I was like, I'm going to hit Europe and I'm going to hit as many places as I can. I was miserable because in 29 days, I think I hit 10 countries.
Oof.
And that trip reminded me that I am not about this life. So that's another reason why I wanted to talk to you about it. So to me, the thought of like having to pack up my stuff again in 4 weeks, like I'm struggling with that. So I've got to ask, how are you packing for this?
All right, so I'm glad we're speaking about this because, girl, I can use some advice because I'm struggling myself with this concept, right? So, my sister always tells me that I've been overpacking, right? Like, I was telling myself I'm just gonna do one carry-on, right? But I always end up taking like another one, or like a check bag, and that's the worst part, like you dragging these
Yeah.
two bags behind you, and I have a book bag too, so I have these two suitcases and a book bag. And like when I was in England, because I was thinking about making England my home base going forward, I was going from different cities all within England, and those were like within 1 week or like 5 to 6 days. I'm going from one place to one place. I'm just packing up, getting myself together, going here, and it's hard. And I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't, I'm
And
starting to think I'm not
I
built
am
for it.
team one bag. Now that's one
Yeah,
thing I will do for this trip, 29 days. I have one bag. And
yeah.
it's a bag small enough to fit underneath the seat in front of you, because ain't nobody gonna make me gate check a bag. Okay. So I got the one bag down, but I'm really curious as to how you're doing this.
I mean, so what I try to do, right? I think the biggest problem I have is like when I came back, I'm like, okay, it's starting to get cold, so I need like winter boots, and I overthought that way too much. So for me, it's like I am trying to organize my stuff with what I know I'm going to use, and then like leave the rest of the stuff alone. So I'm like every time before I get ready to go somewhere new, I'm like, let me, girl, don't get this, so don't go search, don't have to search for it. So I put the things that I need in my book bag, and then my end of
Yeah.
my suitcase ended up not being used very much because I would just be pulling out of my book bag, and I'm like, I'm not touching that because I don't want to have to repack, I don't want to re-roll anything, I don't want to have to reorganize. So I would just pick the things that I knew I needed, wherever I was going, put them in my book bag, and be like, girl, don't even touch it. So that's been what I do, but I still had to drag them around because my not very bright self brought them along with me. But once again, this is a learning curve for me, and I'm like, going forward, when I'm back right now, I'm recharging for a couple of weeks. When I go back, one bag, that's it. But it's hard. I do not like having to repack. I do not like having to pull my bags along.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that part of it. So I'm happily ready to take in information in regards to that because it's
No,
not fun.
I am, like I said, I am team one bag. And the age old advice is basically pack like you would for 1 week.
Yeah,
And choose things in a color palette, in a single color palette. That way the pieces can be interchanged and mixed and match and
yeah,
that sort of thing. And think in layers. One, like you said, cold weather. This is one that kind of trips people up. And what I did is I made an investment in a Patagonia down jacket that then folds up into a little pouch about this big.
okay, that's a
So,
great idea. That's a great
so
idea.
Yeah, so I was like, because I had other coats. I no longer own them. I've left them various places around the world, and I'm pretty much down to just that down jacket, and it has served me well. So I can go from a warm climate to a cold climate and not be lugging around a big coat or something that's going to take up a lot of space because, as I
Yeah.
told you, my bag is small.
Yeah. With the coat situation, I was like, I'm just gonna buy one when I get there and throw it away. But I'm like, that's a waste of money. But that's I did because like they're so bulky, right? So, I'm just like, I don't know how to handle this. But this, what you're speaking to, that folds up. I need to look into something
Yeah.
like that because,
That's why I was, because I'm trying to think where I had gone before, where I had like this big bulky jacket, and I was like, this is not going to work. Now, you talk about buying one when you get there. When I went to Iceland, my friend who was traveling with me had been doing research work in Costa Rica. So he had to take his coat with him to Costa Rica. And of course, it was March. So
whew,
he, it was just a hot, bulky thing. Well, he ended up leaving it there. And so we're flying to Iceland, and he's like, I don't have a coat. And I was like, well, you could just buy one. Girl, we got off the plane into the airport. There's a shop. Those coats were like 700 US dollars.
whoa, whew,
He
I
was
will just die.
sick. He was sick. What we ended up doing was the next day we found a thrift store and got
Mm,
him a jacket for like 45 USD that he hated that coat because he just kept thinking like, I don't know who's worn this, blah blah blah. And then he threw it away at the airport when we left. And
mm.
somebody saw him leave it behind and tried to give it back to me. He was like, I don't want that damn
This
coat.
is intentional.
Yes. But anytime somebody, because no, it's a very valid point. If you forget something, unless you are going to like North Korea or outer Mongolia somewhere, you can buy a replacement. Just know that that replacement might be a little steep.
Mm. Girl, I haven't ran into that problem yet, so let me knock on wood right there. But I think I just need to make sure I plan a little bit better so I'm not in a situation where like, oh yeah, you can get this coat for about 500. I'm like, oh shoot, okay, I'll
Yeah.
freeze, I'll figure it out. So, I didn't think about that. Learning, I'm learning.
Yeah, no, but that's the beauty of it. It's all part of the journey. That's part of the adventure. So
It
yeah,
is, it
learn the
is.
lessons as they come. Um, I was going to ask this question, but Tracy phrased it much better than my question. What was your favorite place you've visited thus far? You know, food, natural beauty, ease of travel, whatever.
Yes, I mean it's a pretty easy. I feel kind of generic saying it, but I mean it is what it is. It's been Turkey, because Turkey food is amazing. Turkish food is amazing. I mean I love it. And then I went to the Greek islands a bit, and it's just like it's just so I don't know. It's like breathtaking. It's breathtaking, and like the people for me are mostly positive. My experience with the people has been mostly positive. But like the terrain, the people, the culture, like
This is in
they have
Greece.
no Turkey. Turkey.
Okay,
See,
because I
Greece is
was
I'm
like,
going to Greece very
Greece did
soon.
not wow me.
No, it didn't.
I
Don't
No,
do this.
I
You gotta take it off
went
my list. Don't do
because
that.
my friend wanted to go, and I'm the good kind of friend to have that whenever you say, "Hey, I want to go on this trip," I'm like, I'm down. So
Yeah.
so that's how I ended up in Greece. But it did not wow me.
Mm,
Turkey, I need to spend more time there. I only got a couple of days, so it's always been on my list to go back. Right now, I'm planning to be there in April after I hit a few other countries in that area.
hmm
So, and I had the best baklava of my life in Istanbul. I I'm not even gonna lie to you, it was life changing.
the food will make you just like I was ready to move there. Like because it was one of the first places I went when I started traveling. I think Turkey was the first place I went, and it was like it left a. That's why I think it was like I was hooked on the idea. Like this is what I want to do. I want to travel, and because it was just such an amazing experience. Now I haven't duplicated that experience yet, but I know there's a possibility it probably will happen. But it was just like the food was great. I had a very good time with the locals. People were extremely nice to me. It considering that I didn't know the language, I was able to navigate very easily. The transportation is very easy. It's very easy. Mind you, I'm talking about mostly Istanbul. I know the more south you get, it gets a little bit more difficult. But even so, from what I've done research wise, because I'm going back myself, because I have to explore a lot more myself. But even from what I have been able to experience myself, and then from other people's experiences, just getting around and navigating is very easy. That's an important thing to me because I don't want to be in a situation where like it's a struggle to navigate the city, or we can't get transportation or Ubers or whatever their local transportation is called. But Turkey's just been extremely easy. It's been an extremely good experience, and like I don't know, I everyone's really generous and nice, and people are trying to feed you, and I'm like I love to eat, so come here. It's I have no complaints about my experience in Turkey.
Okay, all right. So Turkey kind of wins that contest hands
Yeah,
down.
yeah, it
Now,
does.
you said something about getting to know the people or something like that. So, we're going to talk about you got to know some people on a kind of personal level because hey, now we have talked about planning, we've talked about packing, we got to talk about dating.
Which
Um,
is my forte.
oh, see, now, I don't know if a woman watching this might think like, oh, dating isn't an option when you're traveling, um, or not, but you're here to say yes, dating can be done, dating can be fun. Talk to me. What does that look like?
Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you really quickly from two different perspectives because as you may know, like dating has become kind of like my niche in a way. So it's when you're traveling, you're actively traveling. Obviously, it depends on your mindset, right? My mindset is like if for some reason I find someone who just amazes me and wows me and whatever the case may be, I can look to see if something can turn into something else. But for the most part, I don't date with the intentions of an actual relationship. I date in the intentions
Who
of
got
like
time for a
a
relationship?
exactly like I date in intentions of like tour guide, show me experiences, show me your country, show me your culture. And for me, I mean, they don't necessarily know that's my intention. Some of them I'm a little honest with, like, hey, look, this in town. I just want to kind of know. Other ones I'm just kind of like, I'm vague with. I don't set any expectations. But I have had, and I know I'm younger and I skew towards a different demographic, but I've never had no problems getting dates. I have felt very safe in all of my experiences so far. I do take a lot of precautions when I'm dating in these countries, just for different reasons that is normal for all women. Like I make sure I get their full name. I get their if I do allow them to pick me up, their driver license information, all that stuff like that will be sent to my sister, who kind of monitors me as I go. She's able to track my location. I only meet and do things in public spaces. I'm like, yo, take me to a mosque, or can we go to this museum, or take me here? Because I'm very big on different cultural experiences. Take me to this art gallery. If you're gonna take me to a restaurant, take me there. But like, I'm never gonna say I'll never go to anyone's home because I'm not. These are just usually when I go on dates, it's once. If I stay in the city long enough, maybe it will be multiple times. But a lot of times it's just like a one-off experience for me to kind of get, an experience with this person, or have them take me to this restaurant that I didn't feel like paying for,
That's what
or
this is about. This is all
that's
about
what
the
I'm saying.
experience. Ain't nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think some people make like I'm not like for me right now, I'm not in a place where I'm like, I'm looking for my husband, I'm looking for love. No, I'm traveling, I want to look for experiences, and you can help me because you are a local. Um, and I've had my experience has been, I would say, 90% positive and like maybe 10% negative. But I've met a lot of really great men. I don't know, I don't remember them because we don't have contact for the most part anymore.
Have
But
fun.
yeah, that's what it
Isn't that
is.
what life is supposed to be about? You're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to live.
I think so. I think a lot of people make it so you make it so much. Y'all make it so it's not icky. It's not gross. You're not taking advantage of people. At the end of the day, they had a good time with me. I had a great time with them. They enjoyed my company. It's not like I don't halfway do it. I give them they get
Everybody
all of
got something out of this.
yeah,
So ain't nobody going
exactly.
home mad. I feel you. I feel you.
Exactly. And if I had to speak to once again, this plays to Turkey. Turkey has England too, but like England doesn't count. But Turkey I've had the best experience dating wise there. Initially, I was like, yo, these guys are kind of whack. But a couple of guys came through, and I was like, oh, oh, oh. all right, I like it here. Like the guys are very like I started to meet very generous men. I met men who were willing to, they I could tell they knew what was going on, but they were like, we just love your company. I'm like, well then
Yeah,
great. Enjoy said
that but
company.
wait, but that's the thing. Like not that I'm anybody to be talking about dating, but I feel like dating is supposed to be about going out and having a good time and
That's
not
it.
putting all of these
That's it.
expectations and things on it. So I think if more people did that, you know, the world would be a better place.
It would. Stop being like I am very much I am now, especially now, but always with dating, I've always been this way about dating. I go with the flow. I don't put a lot of stress on it. I don't have any expectations. I go into these things with my eyes open, my hands wide open. So it's like if something does freaking happen, hey, look, it happened. I had this great experience. I fell in love. But if I just was like a one-off, which it usually is because my brain doesn't work that way, I am extremely happy. My stomach is full and my mind is satisfied. Like I have no complaints about just going about date, and I do. Like I said, I've done it before. Like my whole little thing is that I date. I try to do. I put a challenge to myself. Let me try to do 23 days in 24 hours, and I've done it in almost every city I've been to. And it
And
was just
she's
like,
and I don't know. Am I allowed to tell people that you have a YouTube channel?
no, I don't care about that. Yeah,
Okay.
share with them.
Well, yeah, if you're curious, if she has piqued your interest and you're like, oh my gosh, 3 days and 24 hours, what's that like? She's got a YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description and you can check the video out on that. I keep
Yes.
hearing some strange noise and I can't figure out what the hell it is. Um, what was I gonna say? How are you getting your dates?
Okay, so because of the fact that I want to have a little control because I can be a bit of a control freak. I primarily use Bumble. So
Okay.
I get the Bumble app. I pay for my subscription so that I can kind of like see all of the likes or whatever, and I kind of cycle through them and I pick and choose very curated, very specifically, and have these conversations. I usually, if I'm going to a country and I want to kind of do it early on, and sometimes men may not be like, because like say if I'm like here on Wednesday and then like I expect to be able to do my 3 days on by Thursday, I'll make sure that I put myself in the travel mode, and put myself in that country maybe a week or 4 to 5 days beforehand and start making those relationships and getting comfortable with these people, getting to know them quite a bit, and then make my date plans for when I get there. So I'm like, okay, Saturday, let me set up a breakfast and then like a late night date and then like my lunch date and like I'm gonna have a full day of dates.
I
That
am
sounds
not
nice.
mad at it at all. I am not mad at it. Okay, so
It's
you're
been fun.
using Bumble.
I
You're
use Bumble
using Bumble.
primarily.
Okay, okay. No, that's a very smart thing. Especially like you said, putting in the travel mode ahead of time. That way you can you're not wasting time once you get there. You've kind of already got a feel for who you might want to hang out with and who you might not want to hang out with and that sort of thing. So no, that's really, really smart. Um, where are you headed next? Because I know you're back in the US right now, recharging and whatnot. Where to next?
So my next plans, so before the end of this year, so I'm not gonna be here very long. I'm gonna go back to France because I haven't done my 3 dates in France. I haven't dated much of it all in France, and you know I'm very interested in Frenchmen. So I'm gonna go back to France, and then after France, I'm gonna go to the Netherlands. So those are the two places I want to hit before this year is out, and then
Okay.
early next year I'll be going to Egypt. But that one's gonna be a little tricky because I'm gonna bring my mother along, who's also single. So let's see how that goes.
I'm waiting to hear about that.
Oh my God, she's way worse than me, so I'm terrified to put her in this situation. But she's like, them Egyptian men gonna like me, huh? And I'm like, Mama, no, Mama, no. I'm like, just don't bring nobody back to their B&B. Like, she's like, I'm like, we'll see. My mother's she's from Chicago. She's a real one. She don't play that. So we'll see how that goes. But like, yeah, France and then Amsterdam, primarily Netherlands, Amsterdam, and then I'm going to Egypt in February with my mother. Wish me
Okay.
luck. I'm
And
terrified.
no, I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be awesome. I think traveling with your mom, you're going to get to know her in a different way. maybe more like as a woman, less as mom.
Mm.
And I think that's going to be fun.
And we have a very much relationship like that anyway. My mother's always been very open with me, almost too open with me sometimes. I'm like, girl, my mom keep something to yourself for once. She's like, I'm like, I'm your daughter. I don't want to hear this. But so that's why I'm like, when she goes there, I already know she's gonna be a handful. I gotta, because she's always wanted to go to Egypt. Egypt's her dream country. And I'm like, I'm traveling and I'm doing this anyway. And I want to go to Egypt too because the weather is just always relatively nice. And, we can do this together. So I'm like, come on, mom, you can come along with me. So her birthday, she's a Valentine's Day baby. So we're going to go around her birthday and we'll see how it goes. The stories from that, oh my God, I'm ready. It's going to be fun. She's a
It,
handful, girl.
it's going to be an adventure. And didn't we already establish that life is supposed to be an adventure?
You're right. You're right. It's a story. I like because I
Yeah.
always tell my mother like I've had bad experiences, it's not like nothing tragic, but bad. I'm like, but I was like I learned so much from that. Like she's like you're just so much more optimistic. Like even these things I'm like, yeah, mama, I lost like all my credit cards and I think my phone was stolen. But you know what? I learned not to put my phone in that place again. I won't
See,
do
and
that again.
that is very much how I live life is
Yeah,
what is this messed up thing happened, but what is the lesson I can learn here? Whatever that is, and then I try and hold on to it as I move forward.
yeah.
Um, I
Uh,
don't know what is making this noise. It's weirded me out. Okay, so we've had several questions in the comments, and
oh,
you
there you
know,
go.
you knew this was coming, but I think finances is probably one of the biggest things holding people back from traveling
Yes.
full time because unless you are a trust fund baby or you've got a really gracious sugar daddy, um,
Ooh,
I don't know, like trying to know like how am I going to be able to eat? That's a valid question. So
yes.
how are you able to afford to do this?
Okay, so I will say that my situation is obviously a bit different. So I'm a person who actively, obviously, I believe in having multiple ways of making money. I just think that's the way of the future, and it seems to work. But like most of my money actually does come from my time in the military, from like my disability associated with my time in the military. That's makes up the bulk of my travel funds. But I also have like multiple little things that I do. So I also, because I can do this while I'm gone, I do video editing. So I work through different applications where I, offer up my services, do video editing. If I am sitting somewhere, like if I'm in England or if I'm back in the States, I'm a seamstress too by trade. So I also do that. I create, outfits, gear, mostly performance wear. So for dancers, because I used to be a professional wrestler, so I create a lot of gear for some of my friends who are also professional wrestlers. Um, so that's another way that I bring in a source of income. I have certain investments. Obviously, the importance of investing right now in different variables, and then I also have two rental properties that I have that kind of bring in a source of income for me as well. So I am doing the things right now to make sure I'm hustling as much as possible to create different little ways of income. I'm trying really hard to find ones with inactive ones where I don't have to really worry about them and they just make money for me. I'm still learning, um, but I definitely think that and the thing that I learned from like Stephanie too is like a lot of little things that I knew I've always known how to do that I learned from my family pimping me out. I'm like, I can use that to actually make money because I was doing it for free for them. So how about I
Yep.
let you pay me for it? So
Stephanie
I
Perry
think
is always talking about taking your skills abroad, using those skills you have to make money. So I love
yeah.
it.
I think it's a huge proponent for people to kind of like take down an inventory list and say the different things that they know how to do that they never thought was something that was anything more than just a little skill you had. And you'll be amazed that people will want to pay you for that. And another thing I'm getting into is actually I'm getting into voice acting. So I invested in a nice microphone and then the thing about it is you can do it anywhere. Once it gets on this, you can do anywhere.
I thought
So
about doing that. You and
yeah.
I may need to talk about that because I've thought about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a relatively new. I was excited. Like I came back to the States. The last time I came back to the States, I went to like GameStop, so it's like the place where you buy video games. And I was just talking to the guy. He's like, "Yeah, my girlfriend, she does voice acting." And he just started giving me all this information. I'm like, hold up, let me just take a little note here. Oh no, okay. So he told me what I need to do and the websites to go to and different YouTubes to start getting experiences. I'm like, why not? Because all you really need is a quiet space and a pretty decent microphone, and you can start like submitting yourself to different sites that look for people for different manners of acting. And it's easy for me because I came from like a theater background, so it was like this is kind of like a part of what I know how to do anyway, except that I'm just not on camera or in front of an audience. So I was like, well, let me go ahead and take these skills on over here. Once again, this random skill that I had did when I was a
I
little
love
kid doing
it.
theater, and now I'm going to use it to make money. So I think people just need to take an inventory and be like this and this and this and start looking and researching if you can make money doing it. And a lot of times you can. People will pay you for this. So get paid. Oh, don't get paid.
Y'all, I did figure out what's making that noise. It's my computer. So if
Oh,
we just suddenly disappear, it's because my computer died. Um,
oh,
okay, so I just thought I'd add that little message in case we disappeared and everybody was like, "Oh no, what happened?" That's what happened. Um, I don't know if y'all have any questions. If y'all have any other questions, make sure that you put those in the chat, because if you're contemplating doing full time travel, here's somebody doing it, living it. This is a chance to get your questions answered. Excuse me. Now, are you, when you like take a break like you're doing right now, is there a plan or rhyme to reason, or it was rhyme or reason to that, or you just was kind of like, you know what, I'm ready to take a break?
yeah. So most of the times when I decide to come back to the States, I'll be honest, my sister and I have a very close relationship. She's my best friend. I'm like, oh, I miss my sister. It was more or less kind of like that was my motivation. But sometimes it's more like this time was like I miss my sister. But also I'm like, man, it would be really nice to like not have to worry about suitcases for a little bit. It'll be really nice to like, I'm just like, I'm like, cause when I was navigating England, like I said, I would be in London, then I would take a train up to Birmingham, which is about a 2.5 hour train, and then I'd be there for 4 days. And I'm like, okay, let me go up to Manchester, which is 2.5 hours from Birmingham. So then I'll be there for 4 more days, and then let me go to Leeds, which is here. I'm like, oh my God, I'm tired, I'm tired. And I think I started to kind of burn myself out a little bit. And I'm like, let me recharge because I'm like, I know I love this. I just, all this traveling and moving about has been kind of difficult for me. This is why I am like also recalibrating and like trying to learn new skills to go back and once again do it even better the next time. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm like, well, back to YouTube. Like, all right, let me, okay, I'm gonna do that next time. And so that's also another thing. I'm like, I come back and I want to learn new skills to take forward to make all this a lot easier for me. Because I'm like I said, I'm learning as I go. And usually I see when I go on YouTube, I'm like, these people are really seasoned. And here I am, I'm like, I'm a rookie traveler. So it's like there's a learning curve, but it's been extremely fun just like learning how to solve these problems, especially in a moment's notice. Like you guys, you don't know how much satisfaction you have from like problem solving in a foreign country with a foreign language. I feel like a superstar, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you are. Um, and I think that speaks to the value in spending time abroad, because you're putting yourself in these situations, you're developing skills. Like one thing that I hear a lot about when you talk to people about like taking time off to travel or like taking a sabbatical, and there's a lot of concern about, well, how do I come back? Will my job be waiting for me? How do I come back? How do I explain the gap in my resume? But
Mm,
really and truly, that time that you spend traveling, that time you spend navigating life in other countries, you're developing problem solving skills, cross cultural communication. So it's really not about, oh, there's this gap of time, I did not have a job. I think that's a very American mindset that,
it's
like,
absolutely
if
is.
you are an adult, you are supposed to spend basically every waking moment working. And
Yeah.
not working is seen as a bad thing. But you yourself are proof that even though you're not working in the traditional sense, you are building skills.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
because and the thing about it is like I don't. not that I care, but I don't want people to think, oh, she's just completely just kind of like shut herself off from the world. I mean, I had a nice job before I went and decided to go forward in this process. You know what I mean? But like, it just they weren't willing to work with like my new way of thinking, and I'm like, well, I can always find another job. You know what I mean? But I can get this time back at a place where I'm ready and I'm extremely healthy. I'm extremely capable. So it wasn't more or less like I didn't just decide like it wasn't just like, oh, I've never been. I was working. I had a nice job. You know what I'm saying? And I'm also continuing my education in January to get my degree in clinical psychology. So I'm putting things in place that if I do decide to go ahead and set my roots someplace, I'm good education wise. But then also I have these other skills that are like invaluable to people that they don't even know are of importance until like you're faced in put in situations where they have to come about. And I think people are, like you said, it's a very American way of thinking. Like we're so fixed. I'm telling you, people, listen to me now. If I can say anything in this entire like interview, when you go to other places and you see how these other people handle life and handle the culture of work, and you will be vastly surprised. Like when I came back to this, let me say this: when I came back to the States, I still had my Bumble little, subscription. And I was like, oh well, let me see what's going on, just because I'm bored. Let me see. I go on there and just you see the profile, just so work related and so isolated. Like, oh, let's go Bear go. I love football, and there's no varying nuances to who they are as a person. It's just like this you're in your microcosm, your small world, like my city and my football team and my sports team and sports and my work and
And my
this
job.
and my job. That's it. There's none of that diversity. But if you go across the world where it's more encouraged to travel and see different parts of the world, like they have a completely different like energy, and they have a completely different mindset for how they live their life. And you don't realize it if you don't step outside of like American culture because it saturates you. And let me tell you that it's a lie, and you will be perfectly fine in these different places having these amazing experiences. So don't talk yourself out of it because American culture has convinced you of this. I'm just saying, I think it's wrong. If I had to tell you something, it's wrong. I think it's unfair that they indoctrinate us like this. I think we all need to break away from it and experience at least a couple different countries because you will not know what life is until you go outside of America. Because America is just work, 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 work. Then you go and get your Social Security or you get your pension or like whatever the case may be. And now it's time to travel at 65, at 70, or whatever, which is fine, absolutely fine. But what I'm saying is that like if you don't want that, you don't have to
Yeah.
have it. You don't have to have it. That doesn't have to be your existence. That does not have to be your story. And mind you guys, I'm 28. So I know it's like I'm young, but like I just
God, that
decided I
makes
didn't
me
want that.
feel old. God, that
I
makes me feel old.
I but I just decided that I decided at like 27 because I just celebrated my birthday in September. I was like, I don't want this anymore. So why do I have to have it?
Well,
I don't.
hats off to you for figuring that out when you did. I love to see young people come to, like reflect on the path that they're on and decide that I don't want this, I want something else. I love to see that. I'm somebody that didn't happen until I was almost 40. So, hats off to you for that. I do have another question here. What have you learned about yourself since you started traveling?
Okay, can you repeat that for me? I'm sorry. My
I,
headphone went.
I said, what have you learned about yourself since you started traveling?
Hmm. I've learned a lot, to be honest with you. But I think the main thing that I've taken away from all of this is like, as I kind of briefly mentioned, um, I had I have anxiety, and I had really bad anxiety for a while, and the pandemic exacerbated it. Because when I left the military, I left with some PTSD. So I've dealt with some trauma associated with my time in the military that I had a very hard time getting past. And even though I was a performer, I did acting. I was the type of person who did it, but like I wanted to be in the shadows. And when I was a wrestler, I did it, but I wanted to be in the shadows. And the more that I've been traveling, the more my confidence has grown. And this anxiety that used to hold me back from a lot of things, because I would just be like, I can't do it. I don't want to be around all these people, or I don't want to feel exposed, or I don't want people to think, paranoia, like someone's looking at me or watching me. I don't want any of those things. So for me, it was more or less like, yo, like I can do this and in small doses, and I've done bigger, and I've gotten bolder, and I've pushed myself more, and I push myself more because it's like the thing about traveling is like I want to do these things. So it's like I need to not find excuses for it. And like I'm like, my anxiety can't be an excuse, my PTSD won't be an excuse. And it's pushed me to kind of work through some of my own internal issues with my mental health, that I had kind of, I've always been, I've been in a good place for a long time, but like I still was like isolating myself. I wouldn't go to certain places. I would talk myself out of things. And I learned that I'm strong, that I'm amazing, and I'm really social, and I'm charismatic, and people love my company. I'm like, okay, people like me. So it's like you forget that sometimes when you kind of get wrapped up in your anxiety, or you get wrapped up in your mental health, that you can be a charming, charismatic person, and likable. And I also learned that I'm like a suit. I already knew I was a daredevil, but girl, I've been doing some things that I like. Girl, what do you? I call my mom like, Mama, guess what I just did? And she's like, was it something stupid? I'm like, yeah, it was something stupid. But it's like it's fun, and I like to challenge myself, and I love pushing myself physically. I'm a very physical person, and I've just been like, there's been very few things that I was like, you know what? I'm scared. I don't want to do it. I'm just like, nope. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Yes. All right, let's go do it. And I learned to like take no out of my vocabulary quite a bit. And I don't mean don't get me wrong. Don't do anything crazy, y'all. What I'm saying is that like there will be times I would find an excuse once again and find a reason to do something. And now I'm like, yes, okay, yes, yes, yes. Let's do it. And I've had a lot of amazing experiences, with jumping out of planes, to hiking up Snowdonia, to it's just like I'm saying yes a lot more. And it's been an amazing thing for me physically and spiritually, which is another reason I can't wait to go to Southeast Asia. But I'm growing and developing all these different parts of my personality that have been like malnourished. They've been suffering, and they're getting to grow and blossom. And it's just like, girl, you become the full complete person. And it's been great. I know I'm filled with joy. It's weird, like I'm so happy, but
I
I'm filled.
love that. I'm filled with joy. I love that. Absolutely love that. Is there anything that you wish you had known before you started traveling?
Maybe she would have known. I if I could think of one thing I wish I would have known, is that like for me it goes back to how unintimidating actually is. Like if I would have known that I would be able to do these things with such fluidity for the most part, and with such like ease, because I was scared, like I'm a woman and I'm a younger woman and people will look at me and I don't want that attention and da 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 da. But like it's way less than I thought it would be. It's way less intimidating than I thought it would be. And like I'm like, well, I wish I would have known that these things, the world isn't so scary, because I would like my only experience with traveling has been associated with the military, which was like we're there to protect or whatever, so you're in that kind of mindset. But like I'm just when you're going to there, we're there to have fun and we're there to enjoy ourselves. It's completely different. And I wish I just wasn't. I wish I thought the world was less intimidating. And that's a big thing I would tell people. Like the world is way less intimidating than you think it is. These places that were supposedly scary are not scary. It's just like they're waiting for you to come and experience it. And like I'm like, I wish I would have knew, because I thought I was gonna be killed or kidnapped, and I thought all these little things. I'm like, they surely gonna kidnap me in Mexico. Like I know it's gonna happen. But
Girl, ain't nobody checking for us
then
in Mexico.
they didn't give a crap about. I'm like, dang,
No,
dang, shoot. I'm like, not even a little kidnap. No,
no, ain't nobody checking for us here. No.
I wish I would have knew that, because especially Mexico, I was terrified of going to Mexico because they tell you it all the time and blah 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 and da da da. And then my friends went there like, girl, we loved it, and I'm like, really? Like, yeah, we loved it. I was like, was no one trying to do no cartel, none, just like car what, girl, no, girl,
Girl, if you ain't got cartel business,
exactly,
it's not a thing. And I find that so interesting because for whatever reason, I remember seeing stories in the US that, yeah, drug cartels, poverty, but or maybe this says something about me. I just was never like fearful. I never looked at Mexico as a place that was unsafe.
yeah,
Now, I'm also the person who moved to the murder capital of the world with a 15-year-old in tow. So, like I said, that may say something about me, but I always am fascinated when I hear people say that about Mexico, because that never occurred to me, ever.
girl, how? I mean, I mean,
I don't know. I
I
don't
think,
know.
yeah, between my friends going there, and then I was in a relationship with a Mexican man for 2 years, and like he moved here to America when he was once, but his family obviously very rooted in the culture. So, and I talked to them, and they're like, girl, they would tell me like, people, not as many Mexicans want to come here. Like all the propaganda we were fed, I'm like, I knew a lot of it was fake, but just hearing it from their mouth, I was just
I
like, wow.
I was watching some videos on YouTube the other day from Mexican YouTubers who were speaking to Mexican Americans. And
Mm,
when I hear people just in general talk about like, yeah, such and such told me, it's often Mexican Americans that will tell them you don't want to go to Mexico. Mexico is unsafe. And I, especially if that may be part of why they are there. I can
of
understand where that narrative would come from.
course.
But, like folks who've never been here and have only been watching Narcos, no.
I think, and that's like it's a huge learning curve for us. Because I would say after Turkey, Mexico's next. I love Mexico. My sister wants we and my sister are planning to go back soon as well because she loved Mexico as well. Like we never would have thought we were going to enjoy ourselves so much in Mexico, but I am telling you, it's like I said, if I knew what was less intimidating, I would have been like, no, not that I'm like I still got to it earlier than younger than most people, but like I would have probably even started in my at 20 years old or something like that. I probably when I went to the military, I would have been traveling right after I got out of high school. So like I was scared, and I was like, I need to protect the world from this type of scariness. And then you turn around, you're like, girl, and then what are you worried about? They're not worried about you. They're not thinking about you. And a lot of people who live there, like, we don't even want to go to America. We don't even, but we're good. We're happy. I'm like, why wouldn't you be? You guys all have little gardens and like, there's all these plants and greenery. Why would you want to come to America where it's like slummy? Like, it's like you get the ideas are like, the ideas are just so they ruminate in your brain for so much, and it's like it's toxic, and you have to clear it away, and you're like, dang, the world is amazing outside of America.
It is. And I think, like that's one of the reasons that I started this YouTube channel and I seek out other Black women who are out here doing the thing to talk to is because I think, like, think about had you seen somebody who looked like you who was out here doing this, how that would have impacted you. I know it would have made a huge impact on me.
Yeah.
So that's why I always want to share stories like yours,
Yeah.
is so that people can get another perspective. They can see that there's more to the world beyond just their front yard, their neighborhood, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's what you want from me. You, Stephanie, Rashida. There's a couple other YouTubers who I wish I could think of. What's her name? I really want to shout her out because she's so beautiful and I love her so much. Mare Meets World. Like women like that were like, I was like, look at them doing that. Mare's around my age too. So I was like, look at the girls out here doing this. And I'm like, they look like me, or they look like my mother. They look like I know that they can connect with who I am as a person. And they doing that thing. And back in November when I found started y'all YouTube, I'm like, oh, like, okay. And I started joining your groups. I'm like, I don't talk in them because like I said, I'm still kind of awkward. But I'm in there, I'm reading, you know what I'm saying? I'm paying attention. But like, it was so enriching for me. I was just like, oh my gosh, these women are like doing the dang thing, and they don't seem to have any type of regrets, and you guys all have a glow about you. I'm like, I want that glow. Like it's that
That's that no stress glow.
yes. I'm like, I'm over here looking ashy and they looking all glowy, and I'm like, I need to figure out what the recipe is, and like I'm learning that the recipe is just turning your backs on a lot of things and living your best life.
It is turning your back on a lot of things, but it's also embracing or being open to, I think, many more possibilities.
Yeah.
And I've been abroad for 5 years, 5.5 years maybe. And if you had talked to me 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I would not have guessed that this is where I would be and that this is what I would be doing. Because I very much was that person that I grew up without a safety net. I was my safety net.
Yeah.
So I always was like, you got to have a plan. You got to do the safe thing, that sort of thing. that person does not live here anymore.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of like, it'll work out. I ain't stressing about it.
It'll work out. That's the attitude that I have now. I'm like, I don't overthink anymore. And that's been like the most relieving part of my personality. I'm like, I don't it'll I know how to fix stuff. What am I worried about? I will find a solution. And like I have found solutions time and time again. I have made it work time and time again. And like I almost enjoy problems popping up because I'm like, how can I solve this? Like it's challenging to me in a fun way. It's like exciting. I'm like, okay,
That's
what do
that's a great way to be, like, and living in an anticipatory space, looking forward to challenges as opposed to dreading problems or living in a space of fear. I think that says a lot about the power of living life on your terms, and choosing yourself, choosing, your happiness, which, if y'all have watched anything on this channel, that's what we're all about here. um, but I would like to thank you
yes.
for, because I know you just got back and I know jet lag is real.
Woo,
But I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come and talk to us today. Um, AZ has a YouTube channel, Off Code
yeah,
Deity.
that's
And I
correct.
will put a link to it in the description. You'll definitely want to check out her videos on dating. Um, and Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yes, ma'am. Once again, Adelia, thank you so much for allowing me to come on your channel. I really do appreciate this. You know, it's like when one of your little YouTube idols comes and knocks on the door. So and I'm very happy. This has been a very very good conversation, and I'm happy, and I hope everyone was entertained with my stories. And yeah, thank you for supporting uh, Adelia. And hopefully, if you like what you see and you like my channel, go and give me some support there. But otherwise, I need to fix my sleeping pattern. So we're gonna. So
Yeah.
I'm getting tired, and it's 7 too early. It's too early. I'm not. I should not be ready to go to bed. I'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to say the obligatory stuff about, like, if you like what you saw, subscribe to the channel, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. All right. Good night, y'all.